Have you ever wondered if a single act of kindness could change your life forever? I'm not talking about receiving a thank you or a smile back. I'm talking about a seismic change, those that seem to happen only in movies. A waitress named Anna was about to find that reality can be much more shocking than fiction. Her story begins like so many others, in a busy restaurant where the smell of coffee blends with the constant sound of dishes and conversations. For Anna, each day it was a marathon. Balancing heavy trays and tired smiles, she sailed through a sea of hasty customers, complicated orders, and occasionally tips that barely paid for their transportation. She was an exemplary, always kind waitress, even when exhaustion knocked on the door. But behind that uniform, there were postponed dreams and accumulating accounts. A life of silent struggles that no one in the hall could imagine. That Tuesday, which had everything to be just another Tuesday, the restaurant door opened and an old man came in. He was not like other customers. His clothes were simple, spent by time, and his gaze seemed to carry the weight of the world. He moved slowly, almost invisible to the surrounding agitation, and chose the farthest table in the darkest corner of the hall. For most, he was just another lonely old man. But for Anna, he was someone who needed a little human warmth. While other employees ignored him, Anna approached the same genuine smile she offered to everyone. She noticed her shaking hands as she held the menu and the way her eyes ran over prices with a clear concern. He ordered the cheapest dish, a simple soup, and a glass of water. Anna felt a twinge in her heart. She saw in him a reflection of her own grandfather, and at that moment made a decision. His meal would be on her. She served him with extra care, talked about the mood, and asked about her day, treating him not as a client, but as a guest of honor. The man, who had barely said a word, began to open. His eyes, once opaque, gained a glow of gratitude. When he finished, Anna discreetly paid the cash account, ensuring that he would not go through any embarrassment. But when she returned to the table to say goodbye, he did something unexpected. He asked for the bill. "Just for me to write down something," he said in a soft voice. Confused, Anna handed her the reset zero. The Lord took an old pen from his pocket and, instead of simply getting up and leaving, began writing something on the back of the paper. He wrote for a long time, with a concentration that seemed displaced from that noisy environment. He folded the paper carefully, handed her, and said, "Open only when I left." With a mysterious smile, he got up and walked slowly out, disappearing into the crowd. Anna stood, holding that small piece of paper. What could be? An address? A thank you? Her colleagues looked at her curiously. That moment, that break before unfolding the ticket, was the calm before the storm. She had no idea that in her hands was not just a note, but the key to one of the greatest secrets in town. That old man was not the one who seemed to be. He lived a hidden life, away from the public eyes, and shocking truth about his identity was about to explode. The signature on that roll would reveal that he was not just a grateful client, he was a billionaire, and what he wrote in that account would change Anna's fate forever. The curiosity was unbearable. With his handy hands, she began to unfold the roll, and what she saw made her lose her breath. With shaking hands, she began to unfold the paper, and what she saw made her lose her breath. It was not a thanks note, it was a check, and the value written there made Anna's world stop turning. $100,000. The zeros seemed to jump off the paper, dancing in front of his unbelieving eyes. $100,000 for a soup. His colleagues clustered around, the skeptical whispers turning into exclamations of astonishment. "This can't be real," said one of them, taking the roll of Anna's hand, who was still paralyzed. It was then that Anna's gaze came down to the bottom of the check, to the signature. The name, written with an elegant handwriting, was Arthur Pendleton. The name sounded a distant bell in someone's memory. One of the younger waitresses, with his cell phone already in hand, typed the name frantically in the search engine. A second of silence, and then a stuffy scream. She turned the screen to Anna. The picture that stamped the headline of a business magazine was unmistakable. She was the same gentleman with simple clothes, the same kind look, but now he was in an expensive suit, with the title Arthur Pendleton, the Billionaire Reclusive and the Silent Empire. Shocking truth was that Anna had not only served a lonely elderly, she had served one of the richest and most mysterious men in the country, a tycoon known for her aversion to advertising and for living a hidden far from the spotlight. That check was not a mistake or a joke. It was a reward for an act of pure and disinterested kindness. In the check line of the check, Arthur had written, "Kindness is the largest investment in the world. Thanks for reminding me of it." That day transformed Anna's life. The $100,000 paid her debts, allowed her to take care of her family and, more importantly, gave her the freedom to remain who she was, but without the weight of the world on her shoulders. Her story has become a local legend, a powerful reminder that you never know who is on the other side of the table, and that a small gesture can have an unimaginable return. That meeting revealed all the secrets behind the facade of that simple man and changed the life of that waitress forever. Now I want you to stop and think for a moment. If you were in Anna's place at that moment, seeing that gentleman without money to pay the bill, what would you do? Would you pay for his meal? Comment down here what your attitude would be in this situation. Your honesty can inspire other people. Amazing stories like this remind us of the power we all have. If you are moved and want to see more content that reveals the extraordinary side of everyday life, leave your like so I know that you liked it. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, because today's story is just the beginning, and you won't want to lose the next videos we are preparing. Have you ever wondered if a single act of kindness could change your life forever? I'm not talking about receiving a thank you or a smile back. I'm talking about a seismic change, those that seem to happen only in movies. A waitress named Anna was about to find that reality can be much more shocking than fiction. Her story begins like so many others, in a busy restaurant, where the smell of coffee blends with the constant sound of dishes and conversations. For Anna, each day it was a marathon. Balancing heavy trays and tired smiles, she sailed through a sea of hasty customers, complicated orders, and occasionally tips that barely paid for their transportation. She was an exemplary, always kind waitress, even when exhaustion knocked on the door. But behind that uniform, there were postponed dreams and accumulating accounts, a life of silent struggles that no one in the hall could imagine. Anna was not just a waitress. She was a dreamer, trapped in an endless cycle of work. She dreamed of opening a small bookstore with a coffee, a cozy place where people could get lost on the pages of a good book. But this dream seemed a distant universe, a fantasy for someone whose reality was defined by the next rent to win and the medical expenses of his mother. Each coin she earned was told, every penny had a destination. Her life was a constant exercise of survival, far from the world of billionaires and the wealth she saw in newspapers and television. For her, the idea of a life without financial worries was as abstract as a complex mathematical equation. The restaurant, the corner bistro, was a microcosm of the city. During lunch, he was invaded by tender executives, discussing multimillionaire agreements as they barely looked at those who served them. At night, couples celebrated birthdays, and families gathered in the middle of laughter and noise. Anna via everything. She saw the arrogance of those who felt owners of the world and the humility of those who thanked a glass of water. She learned to read people, to anticipate her needs, to offer a smile even when she received a disdain. This ability, this empathy forged in the fire of daily service was his secret superpower, although she herself did not value him so much. She just thought she was doing her job. That specific Tuesday, the air seemed heavier. A thin and persistent rain fell outside, and the movement was slower than normal. Anna felt a melancholy in the air, a reflection of her own tiredness. She was looking out the window, seeing people running with her umbrellas, and wondered if she could ever run, not to escape the rain, but towards something she loved. It was at this time of daydream that the bistro door opened, bringing with it a burst of cold wind and a figure that immediately broke the monotony of the environment. He did not enter, he kind of materialized at the door. An old man, bent not only by age, but for something that seemed an invisible weight on his shoulders. His clothes were the definition of simplicity, a jacket of woolly wool, pants, and faded twill, and shoes that have seen much better days. Her thin white hair was cluttered with moisture, and her face was a map of deep wrinkles. He didn't seem to belong to that place. He looked like a ghost of a past era, a man forgotten by time. The few customers who were there thrown a quick look, a mixture of pity and disinterest, before returning to their own conversations. The manager, Mr. Henderson, frowned his position near the cashier, clearly assessing whether that man would be a problem. The elderly lord stopped for a moment, his blue, aqueous eyes traveling the hall as if he was looking for something, or perhaps for someone. He looked lost, vulnerable. For a moment, Anna thought he could go around and leave. But then he started moving slowly toward the most isolated table in the darkest corner of the restaurant, near a window that gave to a dead end. It was the table that no one wanted, the table of loners. He sat with a tired sigh, putting his hands on the table, and stood there, immovable, just looking at nothing. The other waitresses, busy polishing cutlery or talking low in a voice, deliberately ignored him. "Let Anna take," one of them whispered. "She has patience for that." For them, this man was a low potential client. He would probably only ask for a coffee, stay for hours and leave no tip. A waste of time and energy. But Anna didn't see a problem. She saw a person. She saw the loneliness incarnate in a human being and felt an immediate connection, an empathy that transcended any profit or loss calculation. She took her notepad, a glass of fresh water, and walked toward the dark corner, toward the man that everyone else had decided to erase his reality. As she approached, she offered her warmer smile. "Good afternoon, Lord. Welcome to the Corner Bistro. My name is Anna, and I will take care of the Lord today." His voice was soft, without a shred of the trial that hovered in the air. The man slowly lifted his head, and for the first time his eyes met hers. There was a depth in that look, a life story contained in those blue iris. He seemed surprised, as if he didn't expect to be noticed, much less treated so kindly. He did not know, but that simple act of recognition of Anna was the first spark that would light a fire of revelations. That meeting was about to unravel a hidden life, a secret existence that would challenge everything Anna thought about knowing about the world. The shocking truth about that man's identity and the secrets he kept were just one request for a distance, and the life of that waitress was on the threshold of an unimaginable transformation. What do you think you are going on in the head of a disguised billionaire sitting alone in a restaurant? Think about it and tell me your theory. If you believe he was testing people, comment, "He was doing a test." If you think he was just lonely and seeking a real connection, comment, "He was looking for a friend." I really want to know your opinion. As she approached, she offered her warmer smile. "Good afternoon, Lord. Welcome to the Corner Bistro. My name is Anna, and I will take care of the Lord today." His voice was soft, without a shred of the trial that hovered in the air. The man slowly lifted his head, and for the first time, his eyes met hers. There was a depth in that look, a life story contained in those blue iris. He seemed surprised, as if he didn't expect to be noticed, much less treated so kindly. He did not know, but that simple act of recognition of Anna was the first spark that would light a fire of revelations. That meeting was about to unravel a hidden life, a secret existence that would challenge everything Anna thought about knowing about the world. The shocking truth about that man's identity and the secrets he kept were just one request for a distance, and the life of that waitress was on the threshold of an unimaginable transformation. A little smile, almost imperceptible, touched the old lord's lips. "Anna," he repeated her name in a low voice, almost a whisper. "It's a beautiful name." His voice was hoarse, as if it was not used for a long time, but carried a dignity that contrasted strongly with his appearance. Anna felt an even bigger wave of sympathy. She handed her the menu, but noticed that he barely looked at the dishes. His eyes instead traveled the price column with a palpable anxiety. He passed his trembling finger through the numbers, and Anna could see the mental calculation happening, the search for something that fit a budget that she suspected was extremely limited. This scene was painfully familiar to Anna. She had already seen that look of concern for her own mother in the supermarket, deciding between buying a medicine or a basic food item. It was the look of those who live on the limit, where each penny counts. While executives at the other tables asked for expensive steaks and bottles of wine without even looking at the price, that gentleman was waging a silent battle with a simple menu. The contrast was brutal, a raw representation of the inequality that Anna witnessed every day. The world of wealth and luxury looked like a distant galaxy from that table in the dark corner. "The soup of the day is tomato and basil," said Anna gently, trying to help. "It's very tasty and comes with warm bread. It's one of our specialties and not very heavy." She pointed to the cheapest item on the menu, trying to do this as subtle as possible so as not to embarrass him. He raised his eyes from the menu, and for a second Anna saw something in them. It was not gratitude, but a kind of analytical curiosity. It was as if he were studying her, evaluating his sincerity. It was a penetrating, intelligent look that seemed completely displaced in his tired face. It was a flash so fast that Anna almost thought to have imagined. Then the fragility mask came back. "Soup looks like a great idea," he said finally, "and a glass of water, please." "Of course, I bring to the Lord in a moment," Anna replied, collecting the menu. As she walked away, she felt his eyes on her back. It was not an intimidating look, but observer. She felt view in a way that rarely happened. Customers usually looked through it, saw only the uniform, the function. But that man saw her like a person. Upon arriving in the kitchen to place the order, she could not get his image out of the head. Who was he? Where did you come from? That brief moment of clarity in her gaze made her intrigued. There was more in that man than his appearance suggested. A secret was hidden there, she could feel. When she returned with the steaming soup and fresh bread, she found him exactly as she had left him, looking out the window to the alley's brick wall. He seemed so absorbed in his thoughts that he didn't notice her approaching. "Here, sir. I hope you enjoy it," she said, placing the plate carefully in front of you. The soup aroma seemed to wake him up from his trance. He looked at the plate and then to her, and this time the smile was a little broader. "It looks delicious. Thank you, my young woman." Anna was about to withdraw and let him eat alone, but something made her stop. Instead of walking away, she leaned down a little and said in a low voice, "You know, my grandmother used to make a very similar tomato soup. She said it was food for the soul. It was an impulse, a small personal sharing that she would normally not make with a client. But with him it seemed right. His reaction was immediate. The formality on his face fell on, replaced by a genuine interest. His grandmother was a wise woman, he said. The soul needs food as much as the body. And so, an unlikely conversation started. He asked about her grandmother, and Anna found himself telling stories of her childhood. He was an amazing listener, asking questions that encouraged her to talk more, remembering the small details she mentioned. He didn't talk much about himself. When Anna, out of education, asked about her family, he simply said, "It's a long and complicated story," with a tone that was both melancholy and definitive, a clear sign not to continue. It was another piece in the puzzle, another indication of a hidden life, As they talked, Anna realized that Mr. Henderson, the manager, watched her impatiently. She was spending a lot of time on a customer who would barely consume $10. She knew she should be circulating, serving other tables, but couldn't walk away. That conversation was an oasis on his hard work day. It was real. The man eaten his soup slowly, savoring each spoonful as if it were the most luxurious meal in the world. When he finished, he wiped his mouth with the paper napkin and sighed, satisfied. It was divine, exactly what I needed. "I'm glad you liked it," said Anna, smiling. Then came the inevitable moment, the account. Anna felt a knot in her stomach. She knew on instinct that he would have difficulty paying even that modest value. The idea of seeing him going through any kind of embarrassment was unbearable to her. At that moment, a decision formed in his mind. She was risky, and she would probably scold the manager, but her heart told her it was the right thing to do. That man, with his silent dignity and his palpable loneliness, deserved a little for grace. She was about to commit an act of kindness that would seal her fate, a gesture that would trigger a shocking revelation and prove that sometimes the greatest treasures are not made of gold, but of compassion. The stage is excited for the moment that would change everything. Now I want you to think about the power of a decision, that moment when you choose to follow your heart instead of logic. Have you done something like this? Have you taken a little kindness that ended up having a big impact? If you have already helped a stranger unexpectedly, comment, "I've done my part." If you believe that kindness is the most powerful force in the universe, comment, "Kindness moves the world." Let's fill the comments with positivity. Then came the inevitable moment, the account. Anna felt a knot in her stomach. She knew on instinct that he would have difficulty paying even that modest value. The idea of seeing him going through any kind of embarrassment was unbearable to her. At that moment, a decision formed in his mind. She was risky, and she would probably scold the manager, but her heart told her it was the right thing to do. That man, with his silent dignity and his palpable loneliness, deserved a little for grace. She was about to commit an act of kindness that would seal her fate, a gesture that would trigger a shocking revelation and prove that sometimes the greatest treasures are not made of gold, but of compassion. The stage was mounted for the moment that would change everything. "The bill, please, my young woman," said the Lord, and his voice, though soft, brought reality back in full force. The moment of human connection was over. Now it was a commercial transaction. "Just a moment, sir," Anna replied, forcing a smile to hide her own anxiety. She turned and walked toward the cashier, her heart beating hard against her ribs. She could feel the eyes of Mr. Henderson, the manager, following her every step. He was a man who saw the restaurant as a money machine, and the staff were just gears. Compassion didn't pay the bills, he used to say. Anna knew that what she was about to do was a direct violation of the rules. Employees were prohibited from paying for customers' meals. It was reason for immediate dismissal. For a second, she hesitated. Her mind screamed with her. "You can't afford to lose this job. Think of your mother, the rent." It was the voice of logic, the voice of survival. Losing that job would be catastrophic. But then she looked at the table in the corner. The old man was patiently waiting, his wrinkled hands resting on the table. He didn't seem like a problem or a risk. He looked like a grandfather, the grandfather she had lost years ago. His memory, his goodness, and the love he had given him flooded his heart, and the decision was sealed. Logic could scream as much as he wanted. His heart spoke louder. With shaking hands, Anna took her own wallet, hidden in a pocket from the apron. She took a note of $20, a significant amount of her tips of the day. It was the money she was keeping to buy a more expensive medicine for her mother. The hesitation came back, a sharp twinge of panic, but she pushed her away. Your mother would understand. She always taught her to be kind, to take care of others. To do that was to honor his mother's teachings. Waiting for a time when Mr. Henderson was distracted with another client, Anna approached the ATM. With quick and accurate movements, she typed the Lord's table number and paid the 975 account with her own note. The machine spat the change and the receipt. She kept the change in her pocket and took the receipt that showed the total value and, most importantly, a final balance of 0.0. She doubled the receipt and placed it in the small leather booklet they used to present the bills. Breathing deep to calm her nerves, she returned to the table. Each step seemed heavy, as if walking on the tightrope. She felt a criminal, a double agent in her own life, hiding an act of kindness as if it were a crime. It was a bizarre feeling. The world looked upside down, a place where compassion needed to be hidden. She placed the booklet on the table in front of the man. "It's all right, sir," she said, with the calmest voice she managed to gather. The Lord looked at her, then to the booklet, and opened it. He saw the receipt. He saw the balance zeroed. He raised his eyes slowly, and the expression on his face was something Anna would never forget. It was not relief, as she expected. It was not joy. It was a complex mix of surprise, deep emotion, and something else. Something that resembled confirmation, as if he were waiting for it, testing the world, and she had just passed the test. The shocking truth was that that act was not just about a soup. It was about faith in humanity. His blue eyes were teary. A single tear escaped and rolled slowly by one of the wrinkles on his cheek. He did not try to wipe her. He simply looked at Anna, and in that silent look there was a universe of gratitude. "Why did you do that?" he asked, his voice embargoed. Anna felt her face blush. "No one should have to worry about the price of a hot meal on a cold day," she said softly. "Consider a kindness. Someone has done it for me once, and I'm just going on." It was a little lie. No one had ever done that for her, but it seemed the right thing to say to preserve his dignity. The man continued to look at her for a long moment, his penetrating gaze seeming to read her soul. He saw the struggle, the goodness, the sacrifice she had just made. He, more than anyone, understood the value of that gesture. For the world, it was less than $10. For him, at that moment, it was a treasure of incalculable value, proof that true wealth was not in the benches, but in the human heart. He knew the secrets of money, how he could corrupt and isolate. And there, in that tired waitress, he found an antidote to this poison. He slowly nodded, as if he accepted not only the present but the meaning behind it. That act of unexpected kindness was the catalyst. Anna didn't know, but she wasn't just paid for a soup. She had just signed the most important contract of her life, an unlawful contract, sealed with compassion. That simple gesture opened a door to a world that it didn't even know existed. A world of billionaires, power and secrets so deep that they could shake the foundations of the city. The revelation was approaching, and it all started with that silent act of generosity. Now, I want you to put yourself in her place for a second. Would you risk your job, your livelihood, to help a complete stranger? It's a difficult question, I know. If you believe you would do the same as Anna, comment, "I would risk everything for kindness." If you think her attitude was reckless but noble, comment, "A noble heart, a risky attitude." Let's discuss this in the comments. He slowly nodded, as if he accepted not only the present, but the meaning behind it. That act of unexpected kindness was the catalyst. Anna didn't know, but she wasn't just paid for a soup. She had just signed the most important contract of her life, an unlawful contract, sealed with compassion. That simple gesture opened a door to a world that it didn't even know existed, a world of billionaires, power and secrets so deep that they could shake the foundations of the city. The revelation was approaching, and it all started with that silent act of generosity. The elderly lord, whose name Anna did not know yet, wiped the lone tear with the back of her wrinkled hand. The expression of vulnerability on his face was slowly replaced by a serenity that Anna found even more intriguing. He no longer looked like a man defeated for life. Instead, it seemed a wise man who had found the answer to a question that had a long time ago. The silence between them was dense, loaded with not-told emotion. Anna felt she should move away, give her space, but her feet seemed preached to the floor. She was a captive spectator of a moment she knew, instinctively, be deeply significant. "It's been a long time," the man started, his voice now firmer, "that someone showed me such a pure kindness, without expecting anything in return." He looked around the restaurant, for customers immersed in his own worlds, to the other waitresses who ignored them. People see what they want to see. Old clothes, a tired face, they don't bother to look deeper. He then fixed his penetrating blue eyes on Anna again. "But you looked." His words hit her unexpectedly. He was not just thanking for the soup. He was thanking her for seeing him, for having recognized him as a human being. Anna felt a knot form in her throat. All she managed to do was nod, unable to formulate an answer. Then he did something that completely broke Anna's expectations. Instead of simply getting up and leaving, he took the leather booklet with the 0 receipt and pulled it closer. "I know you said it's all right," he said, "but I would like to leave a note. For you." Anna frowned, confused. A note? He had no money. She was about to say that it was not necessary, that her gesture was sincere and required nothing in return, but the expression on his face stopped her. There was a determination there, a silent authority that brought her back. It was as if, for a moment, the facade of fragile old man had cracked, revealing a glimpse of the powerful man who hid underneath. It was the first time Anna felt that she was not in control of the situation. That man, who she thought was helping, now seemed to be orchestrating events. "Would you have a pen that I can lend?" he asked. His question was polite, but sounded like an order. "Que claro," stammered Anna, taking a cheap pen from the apron pocket and handing it to him. He took the pen with a surprisingly firm hand. Anna hoped he would write a simple "thank you," or perhaps his name and address, so that she knew he was fine. But what he did was much more deliberate, much more mysterious. He became the receipt, using the blank verse as his screen. And then he started writing. It was not a quick ticket. He wrote for a while that he seemed eternity to Anna. Her head was tilted in concentration, the pen moving by paper with a clear purpose. What the hell could he be writing? A letter? A poem? Anna's curiosity was almost painful. She remained by the table, pretending to tidy up the sugar sachets, just to be able to observe. She could see his hand moving, but could not decipher the words of that distance. The scene was surreal. A man with the appearance of a beggar, writing with the solemnity of a tycoon signing a $1 billion contract. The shocking truth about that man's duality was manifesting right in front of her, but she still couldn't understand. While he wrote, Anna noted a detail that made her stop breathing for a second. On his wrist, partially hidden by the jacked sleeve, she saw the weak glow of metal. When he moved his arm, his sleeve retreated a little more, revealing a watch. It wasn't any clock. Even with her limited knowledge of luxury articles, Anna recognized the design. It was elegant, gold, with a complex dial. It looked expensive. Extremely expensive, the type of clock that the executives who attended the restaurant used, the type of clock that was worth more than she won in a whole year. Anna's mind shorted. How could a man who could not pay for a $10 soup was using a clock that probably worth tens of thousands? Cognitive dissonance was so strong that she felt a slight dizziness. Nothing made sense. Would it be a replica? A cheap imitation? But it didn't seem. It had the weight, the shine, the aura of something genuine. That was the first track, the first piece of an impossible puzzle. That clock was a secret he used in sight of everyone, a secret that was only visible to those who looked carefully. And Anna had looked. Suddenly their conversation, his analytical look, the silent authority in his voice, it all began to fit in a terrifying and exciting way. That man was not the one who seemed to be. That was not a casual encounter. There was something much bigger happening there. This man's hidden life was much more complex than she could have dreamed. Finally, he stopped writing. He reread what he had written, nodded to himself with satisfaction, and then carefully doubled the receipt in half, and then in half again, turning it into a small square of paper. He did not put him back in the booklet. Instead, he held him between his thumb and the index finger and extended him to Anna. His eyes found hers, and his gaze was intense, meaningful. "For you," he said, "but promise me something. Don't open until I got out of the restaurant." That request transformed the small piece of paper into a pure mystery artifact. Why the condition? What was there that he didn't want her to see in front of him? Anna's curiosity was now on a feverish level. She reached out her handy hand and picked up the folded paper. It was hot from the heat of his hand. I promise," she managed to say. He gave him a last smile, a smile that was at the same time grateful, enigmatic, and a little sad. "You have a good heart, Anna. Never let the world take it out of you. It's your greatest wealth." With these final words, he got up from his chair with agility that denied his fragile appearance. He didn't look back. He simply walked toward the door, moving with the same slow and deliberate step with which he had entered. He passed Mr. Henderson, who shot him with a look of contempt, opened the door, and disappeared on the grey afternoon, leaving behind a shock waitress, a reset, and a small piece of folded paper containing a secret that was about to change the course of his life forever. His promise echoed in his mind. What could be on that ticket? And why wait? Think about it. What would you do? Would you be able to resist temptation? If you would open the ticket immediately, breaking your promise, comment, "I would open it at the time." If you would honor his request and wait, no matter how curious he was, comment, "A promise is a promise. I want to see who here is patient and who is impulsar." With these final words, he got up from his chair with agility that denied his fragile appearance. He didn't look back. He simply walked toward the door, moving with the same slow and deliberate step with which he had entered. He passed Mr. Henderson, who shot him with a look of contempt, opened the door, and disappeared on the grey afternoon, leaving behind a shock waitress, a reset, and a small piece of folded paper containing a secret that was about to change the course of his life forever. Anna was stopped in the middle of the hall, the small square of paper firmly pressed in the palm of her hand. His heat was already dissipating, but the intensity of the moment remained. The restaurant, which once looked like a stage for a silent drama, suddenly returned to normal. The sound of conversations, the tilint of the cutlery, the call of a request in the kitchen, everything came back in full force, but to Anna it was like a distant, stuffy background noise. His entire reality had contracted to the size of that small piece of paper in his hand. "Anna, table 7 needs more coffee, Mr. Henderson's shrill voice cut his mist. She blinked, forcing herself to return to the present. "Yes, Mr. Henderson," she replied, her voice getting weak than she wanted. She quickly kept the folded roll in the apron pocket, feeling it burn against her skin. It was a secret, a weight, the promise she made. "Don't open until I came out," echoed in her mind. He had already left. Technically, she could already open, but the solemnity of his request made her hesitate. It seemed that she should expect more, as if opening her ticket too early was a break of confidence, a violation of a sacred ritual she barely understood. She took the coffee jar and walked to the table 7, moving like an automaton. Her movements were mechanical. Her smile for customers was a mask she could barely keep in place. His mind was 1,000 hours, passing on every detail of the meeting. His gaze, his voice hoarse, the way he watched her, and above all, the clock. That gold clock. It was the piece that did not fit, the anomaly that transformed the whole story of a simple act of charity for something different, something much more complex and perhaps dangerous. Who was that man? An actor? An eccentric? Maybe a rich man who lost everything and that clock was his last possession, or And this idea made a shiver go through his spine. Perhaps he was not poor at all. Maybe everything was a test, a charade, an elaborate game played by someone with leftover time and resources, a bored billionaire playing with the lives of ordinary people. The idea was both fascinating and revolting. If it were a game, she was just a pawn. But the tears in his eyes, they looked so real. Emotion seemed genuine. The shocking truth seemed to be somewhere in the middle, in a place that his mind could not reach. "Hey, Earth to Anna!" Carla's voice, one of her co-workers, took her out of her thoughts. "Are you okay? Looks like you saw a ghost." Anna turned and saw Carla and another waitress, Maria, looking at her with a mixture of curiosity and worry. They had observed Anna's long conversation with the old man of the singing, as they had already nicknamed him. I'm fine, just a little tired," Anna lasted. She couldn't share that. Not yet. It was very strange, very personal. "Tired? You spent about 20 minutes with that guy," Maria said with a slightly accusatory tone. Henderson was about to explode. What did he want after all? Tell the story of his life? "Something like that," Anna replied, evasive. "So," Carla insisted, her eyes shining with curiosity. "He tipped? I doubt a lot. I bet you paid for his soup, didn't you? I saw you in the cashier." Carla was not malicious, just straightforward. Anna felt her face warm. She was caught. "What if I paid?" she replied, a little defensive. "He seemed to need help." Maria shook her head in disapproval. "Anna, you can't save the world. You can barely save yourself. You need to stop it." "He left me a note," Anna said, more to defend himself than anything else. The word escaped before she could contain her. Immediately their eyes widened. "A note?" repeated Carla, the interest now at the height. "What kind of note? Of love? An apology for not having money?" "I don't know. He made me promise he wouldn't open until he left," Anna explained, feeling foolish to say that out loud. "Well, he has gone about 10 minutes ago. What are you waiting for? Open soon," said Maria, gesturing impatiently. "Come on, we're all curious now. Maybe he has left you the lucky number for the lottery." Their pressure was palpable. Part of Anna wanted to resist, keep that moment for you. It was something between her and the mysterious man, but another part, the exhausted and overloaded part, longed to share the burden of that mystery. And to be honest, she was dying to open. Curiosity was a physical itch, an urgent need. Okay, she gave up, looking around to make sure Mr. Henderson wasn't around. It took the two colleagues to a more discreet corner, near the service station, a small oasis of relative chaos and privacy. With her heart hitting wildly, she stuck her hand in the apron's pocket. His fingers touched the small square of paper. It seemed incredibly heavy, as if it contained the weight of all the secrets of the world. She took him slowly. Carla and Maria Leia, their faces near hers, their breath suspended in anticipation. That little moment before the revelation was one of the longest in Anna's life. What did she expect to find? A simple thank you, a drawing, an address. His mind created 1,000 different scenarios in the blink of an eye. Perhaps it was a confession, the story of his hidden life. Maybe it was a warning. The tension was almost unbearable. It was silence before the storm, calm before the explosion that would forever change the landscape of your life. The wealth he mentioned. Would it be something literal, or just a poetic metaphor of a lonely old man? She held the paper with both hands. It was time. Time to unravel the mystery. Time to face the truth, whatever it was. With one last deep breath, she put her thumb under the fold of the paper and began to open it. The fate of a waitress and the secret of a billionaire were about to collide on that small piece of paper. His farewell was so full of riddles. What do you think your last words? Never let the world take it out of you. It's your greatest wealth, they really meant. If you think he was talking about her goodness, purely philosophically, comment, true wealth is goodness. But if you think he was giving a clue that he was about to give her a literal fortune, comment he was talking about money. Let's see which interpretation prevails. With one last deep breath, she put her thumb under the fold of the paper and began to open it. The fate of a waitress and the secret of a billionaire were about to collide on that small piece of paper. The sound of the paper unfolding, usually insignificant, seemed to echo in the small space between the three waitresses. For Anna, it was as high as thunder. Each fold she broke increased the pressure on her chest. Carla and Maria were virtually breathing, her fixed eyes on the small white square that slowly turned back into a receipt. "Come on, Anna. My heart can't stand it," Carla whispered, her almost childish impatience. "I'm trying," Anna replied, her hands a little trembling, making the delicate task difficult. She finally unfolded the paper completely. It was the verse of the soup receipt, just as she expected, and it was covered by an elegant and firm, surprisingly clear handwriting for a man of his apparent age. The three tilted even more, their faces almost touching, to read what was written. The first thing they noticed was that it was not a simple thanks note. It was more structured, more formal. At the top, he had written her name, "To Anna," and just below, a single sentence that made Anna Gellar's blood. "A heart of gold is worth more than all the gold in the world, but a little gold helps protect a good heart." "Wow, how deep," made Mary, breaking the spell. "Is he a poet or something? This won't pay his bills, Anna." Anna barely heard Mary's skeptical comment. She was mesmerized by the sentence. "A little gold helps protect a good heart." It was a direct continuation of his farewell words about true wealth. There was a hidden meaning there, a veiled promise. But what was it? She continued to read. Below the sentence, there was more text. It wasn't a letter, but it seemed a check, a makeshift check on the back of a receipt. In the field where the value is written, it was written $100,000. There was a silence, an absolute and heavy silence that lasted perhaps 2 seconds, but which seemed to extend through eternity. The three read the sentence, then read again, and again. Their minds simply refused to process the information. $100,000. The phrase seemed alien, a set of words that did not belong to their reality. It was Carla who broke the silence, but not with words. She laughed, a tall and nervous laugh. $100,000. Ah, my God, the old man is crazy. He thinks you can simply write it on the back of a receipt and turn into money. Anna, you attracted a crazy card. Maria joined the laugh, although hers was more contained. I told you he was strange. Poor man, he probably lost his judgment. $100,000. It's hilarious, in fact. Their laughs should have relieved the tension, but for Anna, they had the opposite effect. They were not seeing what she was seeing. They had not seen the clock. They had not felt authority in his voice. They had not seen the penetrating gaze that seemed to see through it. For them, it was a joke, the rambling of an elderly senile. For Anna, it was the most shocking piece of the puzzle so far. She ignored her colleagues, and her gaze came down to the rest of the check. There was a field for the numerical value, and there was 100,000 dachshunds. The zeros seemed to mock her. Such an absurd amount, so transformative, it looked like a fantasy. And below that, instead of signature, a name, Arthur Pendleton. And next to the name, a phone number. Arthur Pendleton, read Anna aloud, the strange name in her tongue. Who the hell is Arthur Pendleton? Carla asked, wiping a tear from laughing. Probably the name of his nurse in the asylum. But Anna wasn't laughing. The name Pendleton. He sounded vaguely familiar, but she couldn't locate it. It was like a word on the tip of the tongue. She looked at the phone number. It was a local number. The temptation to call was overwhelming. Guys, stop laughing, Anna said, her serious voice cutting their mockery. What if it's real? It just made them laugh more. Real? Anna, be realistic, said Maria. No one gives $100,000 to a waitress for a $10 soup. This doesn't happen in real life. This is a movie thing. You're tired, stressed, and your imagination is preaching pieces on you. The guy was a homeless with delusions of greatness. It's a sad story, not a fairy tale. Mary's words were logical, rational. It was exactly what Anna's own mind would be telling her if she didn't have the other pieces of the puzzle. But she had. The clock, the promise, the look, the hidden life that she felt pulse under the surface of that meeting. But what if he's not a homeless? Anna insisted, her voice gaining strength. He was wearing a clock, a very, very expensive watch. I saw. Carla and Maria stopped laughing and looked at each other. A gold clock? Repeated Carla, skeptical. Are you sure? It was probably fake, a cheap street imitation. It didn't seem fake, Anna said. And the name Pendleton. I've heard that name somewhere. It was then that the youngest of the three, Maria, who was always connected, had an idea. Skepticism on his face gave way to a spark of technological curiosity. Wait a little, she said, taking her cell phone from her pocket. If he's someone, he's on Google. She typed the name Arthur Pendleton in the search bar. Anna and Carla leaned over her shoulder, her hearts now hitting a synchronized rhythm of anxiety and expectation. The mockery had completely disappeared, replaced by the same tension Anna felt. And if, that and if, hovered in the air, electric and terrifying. The results page loaded. What appeared on the screen made all three step back, as if they had taken an electric shock. The first image on top of the search was a high-quality photo taken in some gala event years ago. She showed a younger man in a suit with the same face, the same penetrating blue eyes as the lord who had just left the restaurant. And the headline of the first article from a prestigious business magazine said, "The Pendleton Enigma. Where is the most traded billionaire in America?" Anna's world stopped. Billionaire. The word exploded in your mind. It was not crazy. He was not an actor. It was a billionaire, a real billionaire. Shocking truth was so immense, so overwhelming, that she felt the air miss in her lungs. The man she served soup, the man she felt pity, the man whose meal she paid with her mother's medicine money, was one of the richest men on the planet. And he had left $100,000 check for her on the back of a receipt. Carla released a bad word. Maria dropped her cell phone, but managed to catch it before she hit the floor. They looked from the photo on Anna's pale face and back to the screen. Their reality had been turned upside down. The secrets of that man were larger than any of them could have imagined. That meeting was not a chance. It was a seismic event, and Anna was at the epicenter. That moment was the key turn, disbelief becoming a shocking reality. Now think of the position of co-workers. They moved, laughed, doubted. How do you think they felt at that very moment? If you think they felt mostly envy of Anna, comment, "Envy hit hard." And if you think the main feeling was shock and a little shame that they judged Anna's man and attitude, comment, "Shock of reality." I want to know what you think has dominated their minds. That moment was the key turn, disbelief becoming a shocking reality. Now think of the position of co-workers. They moved, laughed, doubted. How do you think they felt at that very moment? If you think they felt mostly envy of Anna, comment, "Envy hit hard." If you think the main feeling was shock and a little shame that they judged Anna's man and attitude, comment, "Shock of reality." I want to know what you think has dominated their minds. The silence that followed the revelation was different from everyone else. It was not a silence of peace or tension. It was a vacuum, a space where the ancient reality had been sucked and the new had not yet solidified. The three women were frozen, joined by a single focus point, Maria's bright screen, which displayed Arthur Pendleton's photo in her days of glory. The reclusive billionaire, the phantom tycoon, the man who, less than half an hour, was sitting in the darkest corner of their restaurant. Anna felt the floor disappear under her feet. His mind, which was already running, has now shattered in 1,000,000 directions. She looked at the small piece of paper in her hand, the receipt, the makeshift check. 100,000. The number was no longer a joke or a delirium. It was a promise of a man who, she now understood, could write a $100,000 check as easily as other people wrote a shopping list. The wealth he mentioned was not just a metaphor, it was literal, painfully, incredibly, frighteningly literally. I don't believe it, Carla stammered, her voice a hoarse whisper. The mockery had gone completely, replaced by a stunned admiration. She looked at Anna, but not envy, not yet. It was a look of pure astonishment, as if Anna had just done an impossible magic trick. Anna, you gave a soup to a billionaire. Mary, always the most skeptical, took the receipt from Anna's hand with a delicacy that was not characteristic of her. It examined the handwriting, the signature, the phone number. That's crazy, she said, swinging her head slowly. This is the kind of thing you read on the internet and think it's fake. An urban legend. She then looked at Anna, and in her eyes Anna saw a complex emotion. Shock, yes, but also a twinge of regret. Repentance for doubting, for mocking, for judging not only man, but Hannah himself and his inherent kindness. I called you foolish, said Maria, her low voice. I was wrong, completely wrong. Maria's confession barely registered in Anna's mind. She was trapped in a loop, passing every second of her interaction with Arthur Pendleton. The way he watched her, the silent test in her eyes, the genuine emotion when she paid for the meal. He was not just looking for food. He was looking for something much rarer, something his money could not buy, proof that goodness still existed, pure and disinterested. The shocking truth was not that a billionaire dressed like a poor. The shocking truth was how lonely and hungry for a genuine human connection that man should be about to create such an elaborate situation. Its hidden life was not just about avoiding the paparazzi. It was about isolating himself from a world that he probably felt he only saw him as a source of money. And she, Anna, not knowing anything, had given her exactly what he was looking for. Not for cleverness, not for a plan, but simply because he is herself. What are you going to do? Carla asked. Her practical mind is already starting to work again. Are you going to call him? For the phone number? The question stopped in the air. The phone number, it was the bridge between the receipt and the reality. It was the key to turning that piece of paper into a fortune that would change your life. But the idea of calling a billionaire was terrifying. What would she say? Hi, Mr. Pendleton. Am I the waitress who paid for her soup? By the way, is your improvised $100,000 check? It seemed absurd. I don't know, Anna replied, feeling a wave of vertigo. That's too much. I need a minute. She walked away from her colleagues and leaned on the cold wall of the service station. She looked at her own hands, the same hands that, hours ago, were tired of carrying dirty dishes. Now they trembled with the weight of an unimaginable possibility. $100,000. What did that mean? It meant the rent was paid, not just this month, but for years. It meant that your mother could have the best doctors, the best treatments, without Anna having to choose between medicines and food. It meant that the dream of the Capri bookstore, that distant, dusty fantasy, suddenly jumped to the foreground, vibrant and possible. It was freedom, the freedom to breathe. But along with the euphoria came a wave of fear. Money like this brought problems. She had heard the stories, destroyed families, friends who became enemies, unwanted attention. Was she prepared for this? His phrase returned to his mind. A little gold helps protect a good heart. Maybe he knew. Perhaps he knew that the constant struggle for money was wearing her heart, and that gift was not just a reward, but a protection, a way to allow your kindness to flourish without being suffocated by everyday worries. Dwarf! Mr. Henderson's voice, sharp like a knife, cut his thoughts. What are you three doing there for gossiping? We have customers. Go back to work now. The call of reality was a cold water shock. Customers, tables, requests. The restaurant's ruthless routine did not stop for life. Changing revelations. Anna, Carla, and Maria looked at each other, a silent pact passing between them. No word to anyone. Not yet. Anna kept the receipt carefully in her pocket, the secret now shared, but still incredibly personal. She returned to the salon, but the world seemed different. The colors seemed more vivid, the clearer sounds. She looked at customers and saw everything through a new lens. That couple at table 4, celebrating a birthday. Were they happy? That executive on table 2, talking loudly on the phone about millions of dollars. Was he lonely like Arthur Pendleton? The restaurant became a theater, and she suddenly managed to see the secrets and stories behind each face. She spent the rest of her shift in a dream state. Every plate she served, every smile she gave, looked part of a piece she was no longer acting. She was a spectator of her own life. The waitress Anna, who could soon no longer be a waitress. The idea was as liberating as terrifying. That check in her pocket wasn't just money. It was a gateway, a way out of a fighting life to... what? The unknown. And the stranger was as frightening as the fight was exhaustive. That piece of paper was the proof that kindness was a coin, perhaps the most valuable of all. And she, unknowingly, had made the biggest investment of her life. Imagine the scene. The shift ends. Anna goes home, the receipt still in her pocket. She is alone in her small apartment. What does she do? Does she collapse in tears? Does she laugh hysterically? Does it call the number? If you think the first thing she would do when you get home would be calling the number, dominated by the need for confirmation, comment, "She calls the same time." If you think she would be paralyzed by the fear and magnitude of everything, just looking at the paper for hours, comment, "She gets in shock and waits." What would be the most likely human reaction to you? Anna's world stopped. Billionaire. The word exploded in your mind. It was not crazy. He was not an actor. It was a billionaire, a real billionaire. Shocking truth was so immense, so overwhelming that she felt the air miss in her lungs. The man she served soup, the man she felt pity, the man whose meal she paid with her mother's medicine money was one of the richest men on the planet. And he has via a check of $100,000 for her on the back of a receipt. Carla released a bad word. Maria dropped her cell phone, but managed to catch it before she hit the floor. They looked from the photo on Anna's pale face and back to the screen. Their reality had been turned upside down. The secrets of that man were larger than any of them could have imagined. That meeting was not a chance. It was a seismic event, and Anna was at the epicenter. The image on the phone screen seemed to mock them. It was Arthur Pendleton at its peak, perhaps 20 years younger, but unmistakably the same man. The same penetrating blue eyes, the same bone structure, the same aura of silent intensity. The only difference was the scenario. In the picture, he was in a luxurious yacht, the blue ocean extending behind him, a glass of champagne in his hand. The contrast to the fragile man of a jacked jacket that had sat in the dark corner of the restaurant was so extreme that it bordered the absurd. It was like looking at two different people who inhabited the same body. "Rolling down," Anna whispered, her evil, audible voice. Mary, with the trembling fingers, obeyed. They started reading the excerpts of the articles. Real estate and technology magnata, known for his anonymous philanthropy, disappeared from public life after his wife's death a decade ago. Estimated fortune in tens of billions. Each sentence was a blow, a new layer of unreality added to an already impossible situation. Dozens of billions. Anna's mind couldn't even start understanding this amount. It was a concept, not a number. It was such a wide form of wealth that it transcended its own money, becoming a form of power, a force of nature. And that man, holding this strength, chose to sit at her restaurant, pretending not to pay for a soup. Why? The question echoed in Anna's mind, taller and more urgent than the euphoria of the $100,000. The test theory came back in full force. He was not just looking for kindness, he was conducting a social experiment. He had stripped of all the markers of his vast wealth, the expensive suits, the luxury cars, the assistant entourage, to become invisible. He wanted to see the world as the world saw him without the golden filter of his surname. He wanted to know how people treated no one. And most, like Mr. Henderson and even Carla and Mary initially, failed the test. They ignored him or despised him. But Anna doesn't. Anna passed. And the check in her pocket was the prize. "He was testing you," Carla said, verbalizing Anna's thoughts. "He was testing to all of us, and you were the only one who passed." There was a genuine admiration in his voice. Envy still kept at a distance by the pure shock. "Just imagine," continued Carla, her mind accelerating. "Imagine if I had taken his table, I would have ignored him. Or worse, I would have asked Henderson to put him out." She shuddered with thought. "I would have sent a billionaire away." The accomplishment of what they almost did, or rather than they did, hit all three. That meeting was a fork on the way, one of those rare chances life offers and can change everything. A chance that they narrowly did not waste. Anna's goodness did not save only the dignity of man, saved the three of a lost opportunity of cosmic proportions. Anna looked back at the receipt in her hand. The signature, Arthur Pendleton, now seemed to shine with his own power. It was not just a name, it was a brand, a seal of an empire. That piece of paper, which minutes earlier it was mockery, was now a sacred artifact, a direct link with one of the most powerful and mysterious men in the world. Hidden life had crossed hers in such an intimate and explosive way that she could not process the consequences. The phone number below the signature seemed to blink to her. It was a direct line for that world of power and secrets. An invitation. But an invitation for what? Just to redeem the money, or for something else? His phrase, "A little gold helps protect a good heart," suggested a continuous interest, an intention that went beyond a simple transaction. He didn't just see her like a kind waitress. He saw her as someone who was worth protecting. The idea was both comforting and deeply disturbing. Being protected by a man like Arthur Pendleton, what would that imply? "You have to call," said Maria, her now firm voice, the shock giving way to practicality. "You have to call now, before it changes your mind. Billionaires are eccentric. He may have regretted." "And to say what?" Anna replied, the panic starting to bubble. "How do you start such a conversation? You just tell the truth," Carla insisted. "You say, 'Mr. Pendleton, here is Anna, the waitress. Thank you so much for your gifted, incredibly generous. How do you know, deposit it?'" It seemed so simple and at the same time the hardest thing Anna would have to do in her life. It was crossing a threshold. It was to leave behind Anna waitress, who worried about dollars of $5, and introducing herself to a world where $100,000 were given as a good day. The noise of the main hall began to infiltrate his shock bubble. The reality was calling. They could not stay there forever. "Keep it," Anna said, handing her cell phone back to Maria and bending the receipt with maximum care, as if it were an old scroll. She put him back in the apron pocket, but now he seemed to weigh 10 pounds. "We can't talk about it here. Henderson will kill us." The three returned to work, but the dynamics between them had changed forever. There was a shared secret, an invisible force field that united them. Carla and Maria looked at Anna differently. She was no longer just her co-worker. She was the girl who had enchanted a billionaire, the chosen one. And although there was genuine support, Anna could feel the seed of envy starting to sprout under the surface. How could it not? Anna's life was about to change in a way that they could only dream, and all because of an act that any of them could have done, but did not. The rest of the shift was a torture for Anna. Each client she answered, every request she wrote, seemed trivial and meaningless. She felt like an actress in a play, playing a role that was no longer yours. His mind was elsewhere, on a Mediterranean yacht, in a meeting room in a skyscraper, in Arthur Pendleton's enigmatic mind. The shocking revelation of his identity had not answered the questions, only they had made them larger and more complex. That man was a universe of contradictions, and she had been pulled into her orbit. Every minute that passed, the receipt in his pocket seemed heavier, the most intimidating phone number. The decision to connect, or was not a battle that waged within itself, a war between the fear of the unknown and the desperate desire for a better life. The discovery of identity is a monumental turning point. It changes everything. Now the question is no longer what's on the ticket, but what happens now. Put yourself in Anna's place for a moment. If you believe the most important thing is to secure money as soon as possible because promises of billionaires can be volatile, comment, take the money and run. But if you think the most important thing is to understand why, Pendleton's motivation, and that money is secondary to this, comment, mystery is more important than money. What would be your priority? That work shift, which began like any other, ended as Anna's last day of Anna. The way home never seemed so long and at the same time so short. Each step on the cracked sidewalk of her neighborhood was a step that walked her away from Anna waitress and approached her. Who? She didn't know. Upon entering her small and modest apartment, the silence enveloped her. It was the same silence as usual, but today he sounded different. It was no longer the silence of loneliness, but the silence of anticipation, the silence of a world holding their breath. She didn't call her mother. He didn't call anyone. She needed that moment for herself. She sat on the edge of her bed spent, the only place in her truly her apartment, and took the receipt from her pocket. Under the weak light of the lamp, the paper seemed like a state document, a royal decree. Arthur Pendleton, billionaire, $100,000. The words spinned in his head, a dizzying mixture of panic and euphoria. For hours, she just stayed there, looking at the phone number. It was your Pandora box. Once she called, there would be no way back. Life as she knew would end. The struggle, the exhaustion, the constant concern with the accounts, all of this could disappear. But in its place, what would come about? Wealth was a foreign country for her, with a language and customs she didn't know. She was afraid to get lost in that strange land, to forget who she was. His phrase echoed again. Never let the world take it out of you. It's your greatest wealth. Was he warning her? Did you know that the money he was giving him had the power to destroy exactly the quality that made him give him first? That secret, the paradox of money, was perhaps the deepest of all. Finally, when the first rays of the morning sun began to paint the grey sky, she made a decision. The fear of the unknown was great, but the fear of continuing trapped in the same life of difficulties was greater. The money was not for luxuries, it was for freedom. It was for the health of your mother. It was for the chance to build something from you. It was to protect his heart, as he had said. With her heart hammering the ribs, she took her cheap cell phone and dialed the number. The call completed in the first attempt. There was no electronic desk, no assistant. A voice answered, the same hoarse and calm voice she had heard in the restaurant. "Hello?" Anna arrested her breath. Mr. Pendleton?" she stammered. There was a break from the other end of the line. "Anna," he said. It was not a question. It was a statement. He was waiting for her call. "I'm glad you have called." And so the change began. The conversation was short and surprisingly simple. He was not the intimidating tycoon she feared, but the same kind man she had met. He instructed her to go to an address in the city center, a discreet law firm in one of the highest buildings, and ask for a man named Mr. Davies. "He's waiting for you," was all he said before he turned off. That same day, Anna, wearing her best clothes, entered the world of Arthur Pendleton. The law firm was the opposite of his life. Silent, luxurious, with thick rugs that drowned out the city's sound and panoramic views. Mr. Davies, a man of impeccable suit, treated her with a respect that made her uncomfortable. There were no questions. There was no skepticism, just a thick envelope and some papers to sign. Within the envelope, an administrative check. $100,000, real, official. Getting out of that building with the check in the bag was the most surreal experience of Anna's life. The sun looked brighter, the cleaner air. She sat on a square bench, took the envelope check and just looked at him, laughing and crying at the same time. It was no longer a dream. It was your new reality. The first thing she did was secure her mother's future. She set up consultations with the best experts, bought all the necessary medicines, and rented a more comfortable and affordable apartment near a good hospital. For the first time in years, Anna saw the weight of concern disappear from her mother's face, replaced by relief that was worth more than any amount of money. Then she resigned from the corner bistro. The farewell was bittersweet. Carla and Mary hugged her hard, a mixture of genuine happiness for her and a twinge of melancholy by her own unchanged lives. Mr. Henderson just grunted, unable to understand how his most reliable waitress was simply leaving. He never knew the shocking truth about what happened on that rainy day. With the rest of the money, Anna did not buy luxury cars or designer clothes. She honored her old dream. She found a small space on a quiet street, a place that had been closed for years, and started working. She turned him into the Esquina de Ana, a cozy café bookstore full of used books, comfortable armchairs, and the constant smell of fresh coffee and roasted bread. It was a sanctuary, a place where people could escape, read, and feel welcomed, just as she dreamed. Your life has changed in every respect. She no longer worried about the rent. She ate what she wanted, not what she could pay. But fundamentally, she remained the same Anna. She treated each customer of her store with the same kindness and attention that treated the restaurants of the restaurant. She knew her names, her stories. And from time to time, when he saw someone looking at the prices with concern, a coffee or a book appeared at his table, on his own. She was going through kindness. She never saw Arthur Pendleton personally. His hidden life remained a mystery, but their connection is not over. Once a month, a black car would stop in front of his store, and a driver delivered a single long rose and a rare book to his collection. There was never a note, but she knew who it was. It was his silent way to say he was watching, that he was proud. He had not only given him money, he had become his silent patron, his billionaire guard angel. Anna's story has become a kind of local legend, whispered among the customers of her store. The waitress who had her life transformed by an act of kindness. It has become a reminder to the community that a person's wealth is not in his bank account, but in his actions, and that the greatest secrets of the universe are not government conspiracies, but battles and kindness hidden in the hearts of ordinary people. Anna did not become a socialite or a public figure. She simply became the freer and happiest version of herself, protected by a little gold, so that her good heart could continue to do what she did best, take care of others. His life was the epilogue that his goodness had written. Anna's transformation was complete, but she remained faithful herself. Now the final question for you. If you received an amount of money that would change your life, so out of nowhere, what would be the first thing you would do? If you would solve all your debts and those of your family, comment, first, financial freedom. If you would drop everything and travel the world, comment, first, the adventure. Let's see what your priorities are at the beginning of a new life. Anna's life was the epilogue that her kindness had written. Its story is not just about a lucky waitress and an eccentric billionaire. It is much deeper than that. It is a powerful testimony of a truth that we often forget about our cynical and accelerated world. Kindness is a force. It is not a weakness. It is not naivete. It is an active force, an energy that, when released in the world, has the ability to create waves of change in ways we cannot predict. Think about it. Anna's gesture was small. It cost her $20 that she could barely spend, and a significant risk to her livelihood. In the eyes of many, like his colleague Maria, it was a foolish and reckless act. But that little act of compassion, that moment when she chose her heart instead of logic, collided with Arthur Pendleton's universe in a way that he had not felt for years, perhaps decades. Imagine the life of that man, Arthur Pendleton, a name that was synonymous with wealth and power. A man who could buy islands, overthrow companies, influence governments. But all this vast fortune had isolated him. He lived in a golden cage, surrounded by people who wanted something from him, who saw him not as a man, but as a walking safe. Its hidden life was not just a choice to avoid the media, it was a defense mechanism against a world that had become transactional. Each interaction was a negotiation. Each smile was suspicious. Each act of kindness directed at him was probably the prelude to a request. The shocking truth of his life was not his fortune, but his deep and overwhelming loneliness. Then he led his experiment. He undressed of everything that defined him in the eyes of the world. He has become a ghost, a no one, to ask the most fundamental question of all. Is there still genuine kindness in this world? He entered that restaurant not only with soup, hungry, but hungry for hope. And Anna, not knowing anything, served a feast. She didn't just give her food, she gave her validation. She gave her proof that yes, kindness still existed. She saw him, not the billionaire, not the beggar. She saw a lonely human being who needed a little heat. And that was the key that opened the safe. Their story teaches us a crucial lesson on value. In our society, we are obsessed with monetary value, the price of shares, the amount of a house, the balance in a bank account. But we forget the intrinsic value of things that cannot be purchased. The value of a genuine smile, a kind word, a moment of listening. For Arthur Pendleton, a man who could literally buy anything, Anna's act had an incalculable value. It was more precious to him at that moment than another $1 million in his account. And because he understood the true value of things, he rewarded her gesture in the only language he knew that her world would understand: money. But the money was never the main point. The money was the tool. It was the medium to an end. The end was to protect Anna's heart, to ensure that the source of that rare goodness did not dry under the overwhelming weight of the struggle for survival. This is why this story resonates so deeply in all of us, because we all have the ability to be Anna. We don't have to be rich or powerful to change someone's life. Anna's power did not come from her bank account. It came from your empathy. Each of us crosses dozens of people every day. The supermarket cashier, the bus driver, the silent co-worker, the stranger on the street. Each of these interactions is an opportunity to offer a little grace, a moment of recognition. Most of the time, we will not receive a $100,000 check. Most of the time, we will not know the impact we had. The person you smiled may be having the worst day of your life. The kind word you have offered may be the only positive thing someone hears all day. Does not underestimate the power of these small ripples. You never know what secrets and battles the people around you are facing. Anna and Arthur's story is a reminder that the universe has a strange and wonderful way to balance the bills. Goodness is an energy you send, and it always comes back to you, though often unexpectedly, and at times you least expect it. It may not be a check of a billionaire, but it may be an extended hand when you fall, an opportunity that comes out of nowhere, or simple me. Not the inner peace that comes from knowing that you have made the world a slightly brighter place. So what can we take from all this? The final message is simple but deep. That is why someone believes in people's goodness. In a world that often seems dark and divided, every act of compassion is an act of rebellion. It is a statement that hope is not lost. It is a bet on humanity. And now, I want this story to go beyond this screen. I want her to become real in her life. Think of a person in your life that showed you great kindness at a time when you needed. It can be a friend, a family member, or even a stranger. Comment down here the name of this person and mark it if you can, with the phrase, "You were my Arthur Pendleton." Let's create a stream of gratitude right here in the comments and celebrate the people who make a difference. And of course, if this story has touched your heart and made you think, the best way to thank us is to leave your like. It tells us that we should bring more content like this. And most importantly, if you are not yet part of our community, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. We have so many other amazing stories, so many secrets to reveal, and so many shocking truths to explore, and I guarantee you won't want to lose what comes next. Thanks for watching, and remember, a small act of kindness can be the beginning of the greatest story of your life. Anna's story has become a kind of local legend, whispered among the customers of her store. The waitress who had her life transformed by an act of kindness. It has become a reminder to the community that a person's wealth is not in his bank account, but in his actions, and that the greatest secrets of the universe are not government conspiracies, but battles and kindness hidden in the hearts of ordinary people. Anna did not become a socialite or a public figure. She simply became the freer and happiest version of herself, protected by a little gold so that her good heart could continue to do what she did best, take care of others. His life was the epilogue that his goodness had written. And if you have reached this point of the video, until this exact second, you are not an ordinary viewer. You are part of a special group, the group that doesn't just seek fast entertainment, but it gets deep into stories and its meanings. And because of that, I have a special request and a challenge for you. First, if Anna and Arthur Pendleton's journey resonated on you and made you feel something, hope, inspiration, anything, show us that with a simple click. Leave your like in this video. It is the fastest and most powerful way to tell us that we are on the right track. Second, if you believe, like us, that the world needs more stories like this, who remind us of the power of humanity, then you belong to this community. If it is not part of it, click the button to subscribe right now. We don't want you to lose any of the amazing journeys that we will still explore together. Third, here is the challenge. A secret code only for us, those who went to the end. I want you to go to the comments and write the phrase, "Kindness is true wealth." So I will know that you are one of ours, that you have completed the journey with us. It will be our sign. And finally, the story doesn't have to end here. Your next adventure is just one click away. See this video that is appearing now on the screen? He was chosen the finger especially for you who liked this story. It is the perfect continuation for your marathon. Click it now and let's find out together another secret that the world hides. Thank you for your attention, for your energy, and for staying with us to the end. We see each other in the next video.